Hello Year 10 and welcome to your next feedback video focusing on the work that you've been completing in the previous week. Alright, today's feedback will be based on that quiz you completed last week that focused on the knowledge about the poems The Charge of the Light Brigade and Exposure that you would have done with the videos from Miss Riley. First things first, I just want to celebrate a couple of things. The class average was 73%, which is pretty good. We do always like to aim for around 80%, all right, but we're really on our way there with that, okay? That's a really, really impressive score. So well done to all of you who contributed to the quiz and managed to complete it. I would just like to note there were 2 people who got 100%. Well done to those of you. All right, I won't name you, but you'll know who you are, but well done for getting full marks on that quiz there. Right, the next thing I want to do is just have a look through the quiz itself and have a look at each of the answers, okay, so we can see what was right, what was wrong, and then I'm going to focus on a few specific areas that were flagged up as part of your answers to that quiz. So, having a look on the screen here then, okay, as I said, I'll go through each question one by one and we'll just have a look at how we got on. So question number 1 was, the Charge of the Light Brigade was a battle about which war, or a battle in which war? It is the Crimean War, okay, is the correct answer for that one. The majority of you got that, but some people did put World War One. That's not correct. Crimean War, okay? The poem was written far too early to be in World War One. Number 2, what does patriotism mean? Patriotism means to be devoted to your country. Once again, the majority of you got that right, well done. But it does not mean to be a soldier and fight for your country or to not like your country. Okay? Because you don't necessarily have to be a soldier to be a patriot. Number 3, what is anaphora? Anaphora is the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses. I'll look at this one in more detail in a moment. So anaphora is not the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning and end. It's only at the beginning, and it's not just the repetition of a word or phrase at the end. Okay, it's always at the beginning. Number 4, what is the importance of the, quote, Valley of Death? It reflects the inevitable fate of the soldiers when they enter the valley, okay? That is literally been called a Valley of Death, which suggests that they're going to die. All right, it's going to be inevitable that that is going to happen once they enter it. But it is not personification that implies the valley attacked them and it was nature that killed the soldiers. No, okay? The first one is the correct answer there. Number 5, boldly they rode and well, suggests that Tennyson thinks the soldiers were brave. Absolutely, okay? The soldiers weren't necessarily confident. They might have been really, really scared about the situation they were going into. They were still brave, okay? Bravery is, still acting in the presence of fear. Okay, so they might not be necessarily confident, they might not think they're going to survive, but they were still brave, they still walked forward regardless of that. Okay, so boldly they rode and well. Soldiers were brave there. Question 6, what is the missing word in this quote? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. Correct word there, okay? Blundered. Number 7, why does Tennyson use dactylic rhythm in his poem? And the answer is to reflect the falling of the soldiers and mimic the sound of charging into battle. I will look at this one in more detail in a moment, but generally when a poem has a strict rhythm such as that, it means that something's ordered and sort of controlled, okay? So it wouldn't necessarily reflect the chaos going through the soldier's mind, though. That, if it was trying to reflect chaos, you'd likely have a meter that was all over the place, okay? So it's reflecting the falling of the soldiers with that sound and mimicking the sound of them walking into battle. Number 8, what does Tennyson criticise in his poem? The commander's decision to send them into battle. Absolutely. Okay, the fact that they were sent there in the first place. That's the correct answer there. Number 9, what does Tennyson tell us to do to the soldiers at the end of the poem? Honour them. Well done, you all got that absolutely right. Number 10, who wrote Exposure? The answer is Wilfred Owen. Okay, not Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes wrote Bayonet Charge. Number 11, Exposure was a poem written during what war? It was World War One. Right, this poem is focused on World War One. Number 12, what is the dual meaning of the quote, brains ache? It suggests that they're experiencing physical pain due to the weather and mental pain because they're waiting for the battle to begin. Okay, so you've got the dual meaning going on there. Okay. Just bear in mind that they're still waiting for the battle to begin at this point, so they're not experiencing physical pain due to being shot at. Number 13, we hear the mad gusts of wind tugging at the wire as an example of what? Personification, absolutely. It's that verb tugging there, okay? The wind can't actually tug at something because that's, it doesn't have the facilities to do that. But that is the effect the wind is having, so it is personification, right? Giving something non-human, human qualities. Number 14, the repetition of the S sound is known as what? Sibilance. Okay, you should have looked at this in a bit more detail on Friday with your first lesson on kamikaze. All right, but I will go over this in more detail later on in the feedback video. The repetition of S sounds is known as sibilance. Number 15, complete the quotation. Something iced east winds that knife us. It is merciless. Merciless iced east winds that knife us is the correct word there. Okay. Just make a note of that if you're somebody who got that one wrong. Number 16, what is the missing word in the following quote? Slowly our ghosts drag home. Glimpsing is the correct answer. The sunk fires. Okay, glimpsing the sunk fires. Number 17, what structural technique is used in the following quote? Pause over half-known faces, all their eyes are eyes. So that's one line of a poem. There's a full stop in the middle there, so it's caesura. That's happening there. We've got a pause in the middle of a line. Okay, not dactylic meter, because that goes back to the charge of the light brigade. We're now talking about exposure, and it's not enjambment either, okay, because again, we're focusing on that full stop in the middle of the line there. Number 18, select a quote below that implies that war has dehumanized the soldiers. All their eyes are ice is the correct answer there, okay, because it's saying that they're no longer human as such, okay, they've been turned into ice, which means they're no longer human. So that is the correct answer for this comment. Number 19, what is power rhyme? Power rhyme is a partial rhyme between words with the same consonants but different vowels, okay? I'll look at that one in more detail later on with some examples. All right, so it's not either of these other two. It's not a rhyme between every other line in the poem or a rhyme between the last line of every stanza instead of every line. When poems do things like that, we will look at that in more detail, but in this instance, we are just looking at partial rhymes, okay? And finally, number 20, what does Owen contradict in his poem Exposure? He contradicts the glorified portrayal of war, okay, the fact that it's being portrayed as this thing that people should aspire to, but on the whole it's not, okay, he's trying to kind of disprove that. So he's not contradicting the bravery of the soldiers, and he's not contradicting the idea that it is bullets that will hurt you. He's just, you know, trying to sort of contradict this glorified portrayal of war and wondering why people think of it in the way that they do. Back to the PowerPoint then, a few areas that I wanted to look at in a bit more detail based on your answers. The first thing is looking at what anaphora is. Okay, so anaphora is the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses. This doesn't only appear in poetry, you can see it in prose as well. It's a technique that's often used for speech writing. So it's when you start normally a few sentences with the same few words, one after the other. But I thought I'd give us some examples of where anaphora appears in the charge of the light brigade. So I've taken a couple of the stanzas here, and you've got some examples here. There's not to make reply, there's not to reason why, there's but to do and die. All of three of those lines, clauses, begin with the same word or couple of words. Okay, so you've got an example of anaphora. And anaphora is normally a really useful technique when you're trying to really make a point, all right, because you're repeating those same words over and over. It tells the reader that that's something to take note of, that it's something important. So if you're trying to get across a really particular point, anaphora can be a really useful technique to use. Another example in the second stanza here, cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon in front of them. It's reinforcing that there's cannons everywhere, okay? Rather than going cannons in front, right and left of them, no, we're going to do it in three separate lines just to reinforce that presence of those cannons there. The next thing I'm going to look at is this question. Why does Tennyson use dactylic rhythm in his poem? Now, do remember that a dactyl is a 3-syllable metrical pattern in a line of poetry in which a stressed syllable is followed by 2 unstressed syllables. I believe Miss Riley did some work on this in detail in her lesson, but remember, so a dactylic rhythm, stressed syllable followed by 2 unstressed syllables, it's dum-ba-dum, dum-ba-dum, dum-ba-dum. And it will often be, when you make notes on a poem, be represented. But in one of these ways, you'll do the dash to show the stressed syllable, then either the line or the dot to show the unstressed syllable. That's how we tend to mark it in poetry. And just to give us an example here with this line from the Charge of the Light Brigade, half a league, 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 onward. All right, so it is that stressed syllable followed by the 2 smaller ones. So bum-ba-bum, 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 bum-ba-bum. Okay, and a lot of poems do tend to use some kind of metre, and there will be other poems that we look at that do contain a particular metre that we will look at. So if you're somebody who's particularly musically inclined, this might be something that you can pick up on a bit more obviously, but so just for everybody's reference, okay, it is that bum-ba-bum, 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 and that means dactylic rhythm. Stressed and stressed. Well, I did 2 there. And the reason that Tennyson decides to use this is to reflect the falling of the soldiers and to mimic the sound of charging into battle. All right, so it's quite organised. Bum, 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 bum. It's regular pattern. If you've got people running forward, you've got horses charging forward. All right, they're going to be making that sort of regular sound as they're moving. But also the bum, the stress syllable, is to reflect the falling. So bum, 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 bum. Okay, it's just to reflect all of those different things. It's a really useful technique. The next thing I thought I would focus on is sibilance. Again, you should have had a look at this on Friday. Even more so today, actually, when you do your second lesson on kamikaze. But sibilance is created with the repeated use of consonants that create a hissing sound. Really common letters that are used are S's or sh or z, all right, but you get that hissing sound being created. And this device features an exposure, so I've copied a little bit of exposure out here just to read through. Just listen to me carefully and listen to those hissing sounds, all right? So our brains ache in the merciless east winds that knife us. Wearied we keep awake because the night is silent. Low drooping flares confuse our memories of the salient. Worried by silence, sentries whisper, curious, nervous, but nothing happens. I do find it quite strange. Once you know to look for sibilance, I do find that you tend to hear it more often, that sound that is created through the use, I say, of consonants. Obviously, consonants are the letters that aren't your vowels, okay? So it is letters like S, H, and things like that. But it just creates that hissing sound, and that hissing sound is made because those letters require you to push your tongue towards the top of your mouth to push air out. So the tss, tss, try it if you want to, all right? Nothing happens, and notice the placement of how your mouth makes that sound. And the last one to look at here for today is just the use of para rhyme with an exposure. So first thing I'd note is that the prefix para tends to mean something like partial. Okay, so a para rhyme is a partial rhyme between words with the same consonants but different vowels. So you get a similar sound, but it's not quite the same. As in the examples I've put here, you've got brambles and rumbles. They've got the bulls sound on both of them, but obviously one's bram and the other one's rum. Okay, so you've got different vowels. One's got an A, the other one's got a U. And the second example I've got there are the use of the word stormy and army. So you've got the para rhyme there in the me, stormy, army, the R-M-Y, but you've got the O and the R different, okay? Stormy, army. But you've got para rhyme because it's a partial rhyme, not a full rhyme, okay? But a partial rhyme nonetheless. That is all for now. Once again, well done for all your hard work this week. Okay, we're making our way through the poems now. I think the poem that we're finishing off Kamikaze today, that'll be your fourth poem that you've looked at so far. So we are well on our way to working through these, getting through those 7, especially by half term. Just as a quick note, there might be some changes to the way I give feedback moving forward, okay? Plans are on their way, but I can't confirm anything 100% yet. So just keep an eye out for any new information regarding my feedback to you guys and how I'm going to deliver that, okay? But I will let you know as soon as things are fully organised and in place. The last thing to say is just, as always, take care, all right? Be safe. Thank you for your work. Keep it up, and I'll see you again for another feedback video sometime soon.